Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Elite Junior Profiles podcast. My name is Lane Houck. I'm one of the co-founders of Elite Junior Profiles, and we're super excited to have another episode for you today for all of our listeners and for those of you who might even watch this on our YouTube channel. But super excited to have another subject matter expert and a great guest with us today. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and punt it over to my partner, Paul Peckman. Paul, how you doing?
I'm doing great, man. I'm really excited today. Today we have Dr. Kevin Willis, who is a sports psychologist with his company called The Complete Player, specializing in mental toughness training. So I'm really excited to hear Kevin's take on his background and how he got to where he is today. Kevin, how you doing?
I'm great. I'm really good. You know what? It's one of those things where it's a crazy time, but it's also a great opportunity. And matter of fact, that's one of the skills we teach in mental toughness training, is that sometimes you got to make the best of a bad situation and turn it into something positive. I love this podcast that you guys are doing. Thank you for doing it. And I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm happy to have you here too. We were just talking, getting prepped for the episode, just, the times that we're in with COVID-19 and the uncertainty that, that's kind of forced onto parents, families, players, coaches, organizations, the whole, no one's escaping from this one, but the uncertainties that's put into the environment right now makes this a really, really cool episode to be able to find out a little bit more about you, your background. And I mean, even in regular, normal times, you're helping players with their mindset and their performance mindset, but especially, relevant right now. So really happy to have you here, Dr. Willis.
Yeah, no, again, I'm really happy to be here. It's funny. I'm not a hockey guy. I didn't come from hockey. I didn't grow up in Canada or Minnesota or Northeast and get to play when I was a kid. I'm a Virginia kid, right? I grew up in Virginia, and there wasn't hockey around when I was growing up. And that was frustrating because I love the game. I've always said that I think I'm sort of a reincarnated Canadian hockey player or something, because I have a weird obsession with this game. But for me, it all started watching an event, February 22nd, 1980. You guys may have heard of it, the Miracle on Ice.
Yeah, maybe. I think we might have heard of that one.
Yeah. It was one of those interesting things. It's funny. I talk to the young kids now, and they heard of it, but they think it's a movie, right?
Right.
But we watched it, right? We watched it on TV, not live, unfortunately, but we did watch it. And something happened to me when I watched that to this day it is the thing that powers me and drives me. And that is, how did a team of literally college kids that hadn't been together for very long at all of them in their early 20s, how did they beat a hockey machine? How did they beat the best hockey team on the planet, made of men who do nothing but practice and train to play hockey? How did that happen, right? Why was that in fact a miracle? There's something got to be more than just speed and size and skating and stuff. There's something that was there, and I had to understand what it was. I don't know why. I was 16 years old at the time. I was infatuated with the idea that this happened, and I literally in that moment decided I was going to spend the rest of my life trying to not only understand it, but teach it, right?
Awesome.
To be able to share it with others. And that's how I got my start. That's why I do what I do today.
You're like a hockey chemist, huh? You're digging into the chemistry of successful culture that leads to, something like the Miracle or championship teams.
You're exactly right. And there's so much to it, and when you think about what it takes to be, what I call a complete player, somebody who's got all the right stuff, there are a lot of pieces, right? There's a lot of things that you got to be able to do well, that you got to be able to do automatically, that you got to be able to do fast and with intensity and power. And it's no different with the mental game. So if you don't have some sort of commitment to add, a mental game element to your game, then in my opinion, and a lot of coaches and pros that I talk to, their opinion as well, that you can never be a complete player. That if you leave this out, then that is an area where you're going to struggle. And I have seen, and I know you guys can attest to this as well, that you can have all the skill in the world, you can have opportunity, but if you aren't prepared and able to deal with the stress and the adversity that it comes with playing hockey at an elite level, then at some point you're going to get shuffled out. It might be that people give up on you. It might be that you give up on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, all of that talent, all of that potential is lost, and we don't have it in the game. So whenever I talk to kids, I basically say you owe it to yourself. You owe it to your families who've invested in you. You owe it to the coaches that take the time to teach you everything that they know, to add this piece to your game so that you truly can be the best player that you can possibly be.
Now, Kevin, let me ask you this, that obviously we're hockey heavy right now with Elite Junior profiles, but we are incorporating other sports. How do you think that the mental toughness that you teach can translate to other sports and other players?
Yeah, that's a great question, because at the end of the day, you look at a sport like hockey, right? It's fast, it's physical. I mean, there's an element to this game where you've got to literally be a robot, right? You have to move quickly. You have to move without thinking. You got to execute things that you didn't even know you could do, right? Mm-hmm. So the ability to prepare somebody to do that is a little bit different than, say, a golfer or a baseball player or even a football player, somebody who has time to sort of prepare, to execute, and then, completes the skill and then gets a chance to sort of reset, right? Baseball, you're standing in the field, but then there's a line shot to the shortstop. He makes a dive, flips it to second, they go to first. That moment, you better be able to execute, but it's that gap in between where a lot of stuff can go on right here. In hockey, when does it happen? Well, it happens after your minute and a half shift. No, after your minute shift, right? And you're at the bench, right, sort of shooting and getting yourself ready. Well, again, there's a pattern for that. There's a routine for that to make sure that you're ready, similar to what you would do for a golfer or a gymnast, or I work with wrestlers and riders, guys that compete in horse shows. So the idea of an individual sport versus a team sport also comes into play. But at the end of the day, it is a lot of what goes on up here that affects your ability to compete and to perform, and especially to perform at an elite level when the intensity is higher, the pressure is higher, the competition is greater. So at the end of the day, if you don't have an element of mental toughness in your game, then it will be exposed at some point.
Right. Is that when you go into, and I was doing a little bit of homework, so I know you're training on the BET. So the brain endurance training can be applied to any sport, any athlete.
Absolutely. Yeah. You know what? Let me kind of backtrack on that a little bit, because I coach very, very specific details, but I also coach at sort of high level, what I call pillars. And when you think about when you think about the idea of what we do in, say, hockey, right? We have on ice, where we're teaching you very specific skills. Go to brainendurance.net. That's the site that I've got set up. You can do that, brainendurance.net. Where I was going is that there's on ice, where we teach you the very specific skills, the things you got to practice. There are things, tactics and strategies that you've got to really work on, right, to get right. But they're very specific skills that you have to learn. So what I compare that to is my mental skills training, right? So that things like focus and confidence and, all of those mental skills, visualization, self-talk, right? These are things that we've sort of all heard about, right? And maybe some of us use, but at the end of the day, those are those very specific skills that you have to learn, you have to practice, and you have to use, just like on ice. Mm-hmm. And then you've got the part of hockey where you have to go into the gym, right? You got to lift weights, you got to run, you got to work your muscles, and you got to get bigger and stronger. And the way you do that is you use them, right? You exert fatigue so that you go out of there and your arms are like jelly and your legs are like rubber, and you're like, oh my God, that was a killer workout. And then you go home and you rest. And what happens the next day? You come back and you're a little bit stronger, right? You can go a little bit longer, maybe lift one more rep. Well, that's what I compared to what I call brain fitness training, which is this idea that if we fatigue your brain through exercises, through, you've got your handy dandy smartphone, And you do these exercises to the point where your brain literally gets tired, right? You fatigue your brain, and then you go away and you come back. But the next time you're a little bit stronger, a little bit more endurance, right? And it's the same thing. And what we know about the brain and brain fitness training is that it's not, when you run out of gas in a game, it's not because you ran out of energy in your muscles, right? When you're absolutely dead tired, there's still energy in your muscles, right? It's not running out of air. There's still air and oxygen in your system to keep you going. The reason that you feel fatigued is because your brain says to your body, hey, listen, you've been going really hard here for a while, and if you don't slow down, you're going to just fail outright. So your brain is doing your body a favor saying, hey, let's back things down, right? Let's tell everybody that you're tired. Let's just calm things down. Let's make it so you can't skate fast anymore. Let's make it so that you need to huff and puff and get more oxygen. Not because you need it, but because I need you to settle down. So your brain, literally, there's a switch in your brain that it throttles you back. Well, when you do brain endurance training, when you're working that mental muscle, you're actually moving that dial. You're moving it up a little bit. It's like a thermostat in your house, right? If you want the heat to come on a little bit sooner, then what do? You dial it back. If you want the AC to come on a little bit sooner, what do? You dial it back, right? Well, the same thing with your brain. If I can move that so that it takes just a little bit longer for you to feel tired, right? Maybe everybody's tired with there's 10 minutes left in the game, but you're not tired until the game is over. You gain 10 minutes of power, not because of running or lifting weights or anything like that. You gain 10 minutes of power because you worked out your brain. That's brain fitness training. And that is cutting it, right? That's the leading, top of the line, world-class Olympic type training that people are starting to get access to. And I'm super excited because I have license to do that now. I've got the ability to put players into programs like that where we're adding that element of training to their program. And then the third pillar, I'll do this real quick, is sort of the ability to sort of back off, right? To recover. We know that if we're a hockey player or a football player or a baseball player and we go all out, we need to take time to recover. If we don't take time to recover, then the next time we go out, we're gassed, right? We just don't have the same amount of energy because we didn't recover it all, right? We didn't recharge the batteries. Well, how you recharge the mind is through things like mental fitness, mindfulness fitness, right? It's ability to just sort of be present, be aware, learn how to recognize where your thoughts are going, why they're going there. No judgment, right? No critique. It's just your ability to understand where your mind goes and your ability to breathe, right? If you ever heard anybody talk about, well, just take a breath. That's because the breath might be the most important skill that an athlete learns to do. But it's very, when you do it the right way, not only do you increase your physical endurance and your physical ability, but you increase your mental fitness as well. So those are the three pillars. It's the mental skills, it's the BET, which is the brain endurance training, and then it's the mindful fitness.
I can see this being huge. I mean, like knowing hockey, that third period is when you can see it as a coach, right? You can see the player literally begin to break down in their decision making as they fatigue, right? And I mean, I just remember even coaching my boys on this, like, you have to apply more focus in that third period. As your body begins to break down physically, you start to break down in your decision making. You make slower decisions, you make worse decisions, you don't make decisions, whatever the case might be when you're really fatigued. So, I can see how, just you talking about this, how really training a player and their brain, their mindset, you say you just get that extra 10 minutes, that extra third period advantage. That's when all the other players are at their worst, right? They've broken down. They're making worse decisions. If you can have that competitive advantage in those few minutes, those 3 or 4 shifts that you get in that third or fourth period, because you've got a little bit different mindset there, or you've been training this way, I can see how the results are going to be very noticeable because of the difference that you see between one player and the next.
Yeah, You're spot on. And it's an area of training that I would say 99% of all the players that are out there that are interested in sites like what you guys are doing, these prospects that are wanting to move up and try to gain an edge and stuff like that, are not currently taking advantage of. So that's such a great opportunity, because so that, say you do get interested and say you do say, I'm interested, I want to do this. You are so far ahead of everybody else that you get the advantage, right? So it's just like the guy that builds the muscle and he's absolutely ripped. And then the guy comes in the gym, he's not quite there yet. He wants to be that guy. Well, you can't see that here, right? You can't see that when your brain is stronger, but where you see it is just like you said, at the end of the game, when the pressure's on and I've got to make a quick decision, but I'm gassed, or I'm not, because I've been training this part of my game and my decisions are just as clear and as fast as they need to be. And so I'm the playmaker at the end of the game because I've been training this part of my game.
Well, those are usually the players that really want to excel to the next level and separate themselves from the masses, right? It's becoming that complete player, and it's not just talent alone. And we all know, hockey, especially in sports in general, it's 90% mental, right? You have to put in the preparation to put yourself in situations when the games are on the line, at the end of periods, at the end of the games, when everybody is fatigued. That's all comes part of the training, and I love it. I think it's great stuff.
Walk us through a little bit your process, Dr. Willis. Like, you get a new player who's, a family and a player who's really interested in this. It sounds cutting edge. It makes logical sense. And they're like, well, how much does it cost and what's the process?
Well, it's funny because everybody's different, right? So everybody that, gets involved with something like this is at a different point in their game. Some could be young coming up and they want to learn some of these things to figure out where do I apply them down the road. Others are at wit's end because they're, given a chance and they're struggling and they're like, oh my gosh, if I don't figure this out, I'm going to get booted. I'm out of here, right? So obviously that situation, you would love to have already sort of experienced all of that education and opportunity to practice these things so that you don't reach that point. That's where I like to reach out to the younger guys. And first question I get is, well, how young is too young? Well, I work from kids anywhere from 12 to 20 plus, right? So I've got the entire youth is where it's definitely valuable. I do know that, from say 14 to say 16 is a sweet spot for those really, really elite players, right? Those guys that are like right at that thing where I've got to decide, am I doing this full time and I'm going all in? I've been drafted or something like that, and I'm the guy that people are looking at, or do I want to just keep this as being sort of a fun hobby, something I stay doing and I like hanging with my buds and all that. So again, how hard do you train when this is a hobby versus how hard do you train when I think this is going to be my career? But then I got guys that are in that junior space, right? And they're playing on teams. The guys are 20 years old and they're big and they're fast and they're crushing everything that moves. I need more than just physical brawn or size. I need to be able to think the game faster because, maybe I don't move fast enough, so I better be able to think fast enough. Or maybe I'm not the 6'2", 200-pound guy. I'm a 5'9" or 5'10" guy, 175 pounds. And so I better be smart with how I'm playing this game. So everybody sort of comes into it at a different, but at the end of the day, I think, Paul, you said it, you said 90% mental, which assumes 10% physical. I always ask people when I do a talk, how much of this game is physical and how much is mental? And I get all kinds of answers, 90-10, 80-20, 70-30. I never get less than 50-50, right? I never get anybody ever says less than 50-50. Never, not one time. And I've done a ton of these talks, right? Never fit. But then I ask them, how much time do you spend on the ice in practice and working in the gym and playing games and all that kind of stuff? How much time and effort are you putting into that? And they just, people rattle off, 10 hours a week, 20 hours a week, 30 hours a week, right? Crazy amounts of time. And then, of course, that's, every week over the course of a season, over the course of the summer, over the course of a year. And then I ask them, well, how much time have you put into your mental game? And it's just crickets, right? Nobody even knows how to answer. And I'm like,
how do you do it?
God. So
they hear, well, I got
50% of
meditate or something.
Mental, and you've spent zero time developing that part of your game, right? So it's astounding to me, but that's okay because we do have opportunities to do that. Now, in the past, it was hard to do this. It was because you had to go out and find the materials. You had to figure out how to piece it together. You had to figure out, what do I need to know? What do I don't need to know? But we don't have to worry about that because it's all been put together. My programs, my 30-day challenge, my boot camp, just the one-on-one coaching opportunities that we offer, all of these are organized in a way that it takes you step by step by step through the different facets of developing your mental game. Scroll up to show that, zoom in on that, because that to me is that roadmap right there that you're showing on the screen.
Yeah.
That to me is the starting point. If you look at the, here's, can you scroll in? Yeah, right on that. That's perfect. That's sort of a roadmap to our ability to make sure that the players are taking the right path. And I always talk about the right this, the right that. So if you look at sort of my layout, my breakdown, if you start at the beginning of the path, the journey, it's the right preparation, right? So it's the idea that you've got to work on things to get some foundation built so that you are able to, from there, build skills and build experience on top of it. If you don't have a strong foundation, then you're going to get, chewed up when you get to the top. And that's what's all about, right preparation. It's making sure you know why you're doing this. Why am I trying to become an elite goalie? What is my goal? What is my purpose for doing this? And what's driving me to do this, right? Awareness of who am I? What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? Where do I need to spend more time, whether it's physical or mental, right? Mindset, when I talk about mindset, it sort of comes down to things like, what's my confidence? How good do I think I am, right? Do I struggle with self-esteem? Am I worried about what other people think, right? So that's all between the ears, right? But we have to understand where we are with that so that we can make adjustments and we can move forward. So that's that right preparation sort of phase. And then we start moving into things like focus and drive, right? Motivation, something called deliberate practice you may have heard of. And this is where what I call the right practice phase, because now we're actually going to work. We're putting our body into situations where we're having to learn skills, get better, do more, right? So that we can compete at a higher level, which then takes us to the performance phase. That's the right performance. That's our ability to be mentally tough, to have a high compete level, right? To be resilient and be able to bounce back from setbacks. And then, of course, to be able to persist and to keep going, even when it's tough, right? Even when it's hard, even when you're not getting feedback that anything is actually changing, right? Every year, it's the same coach, it's the same team, it's the same league. When is this all going to pay off for me, right? Maybe I shouldn't do this. Maybe I should bail. Well, that's that persistence, that grit that we talk about. Got to have that. And so it's with all of these, basically all these different milestones that we want to address, that's literally the mental skills part of the training. And remember I talked about the 3 pillars? We got the mental skills, we got the brain endurance, and we have the mindfulness. Well, this is just dealing with the mental skills part of it. So you can see how quickly we can get involved and we can go deep into the skills that it takes. And then if you look to the right and to the left, I talk about right skills, and I talk about right opportunities. And when I'm talking about right skills, guess what I'm talking about? Your ability to perform on the ice, right? Your ability to pass, to shoot, to skate, to play hockey, right? And that's just a little tiny piece of all of this stuff that we're doing. And at the end of the other side, the right opportunities piece is when I'm really sort of sharing the idea that you could do everything right. You could, have trained your body and trained your mind and put yourself in a perfect situation to be noticed and be seen and be drafted and all that. And it still doesn't happen, right? So there's an element of luck. There's an element of just chance, right? So maybe you grew up in a place like I grew up in Virginia. There wasn't a lot of hockey in Virginia, so I didn't get to play. But what if I grew up in Minnesota? Well, what would have been different for me? Maybe I'm the guy that's skating right now on a professional team or something like that. But I didn't have that opportunity. Maybe you live in an area where they've got hockey, but they don't have elite coaches, right? So that you're at a disadvantage, right? From the guy that does have elite coaches. Things like when you were born. You guys have heard that if you're born in the first half of a year, you have an advantage over the kids born in the second half of the year. I think that's overblown a little bit, quite honestly. And I do think that balances out the more you move up.
Yes.
in the sport, but that's something that has to be considered. So we talk about all these rights. That's what we teach. That's what we coach, so that you understand how they all apply to who you are and what you're going to accomplish as a player. And we make sure that all of those things are in place.
Have you mapped inconsistency in a player's game to mental weaknesses, or a mindset, a need for a mindset change, and that's what it's what's between the ears that's resulting in the inconsistency in their play from one practice to the next, one day to the next, one game the next, what have you?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, because that's everything from confidence, right? How what I believe about my ability to perform. Maybe one day I feel like I'm a world beater and the next day I feel like I'm a loser, right? So how is that going to affect my execution of a skill? Absolutely. But what about things like how I prepared for the week? Did I get enough sleep? Did I eat? Am I eating right? Right? Am I taking care of my body? Those things can be disguised and look like mental weaknesses when in fact they're physical, failures. You didn't hydrate, you didn't eat right, you didn't prepare, you had a morning game, but you had no breakfast. And so you're out of gas, halfway through the game. So you're exactly right. There are things that will create inconsistencies. And I love the word consistency, because that's what every hockey coach that I've ever met, every coach of any sport is always looking for in a player, is their ability to perform consistently. Now, you want to see them on a trajectory where they're getting better and better and better, but at least if they're playing consistency, I know what to expect when I put them out there, right? And if I think I'm going to get this and then I get that, guess what? I'm as coach, I'm very, very frustrated. As a player, you're probably very, very frustrated. So consistency is a wonderful word. I'm so glad you brought that up, because that is so, so important when it comes to playing any elite sport.
It's the one thing I've tried to impress upon my boys, even though I'm not I don't have the credentials and the training and the education that you have. Consistency is always a challenge. I don't care what player it is. And so as I've seen it in my own boys, I've tried to have the conversations with them, kind of an after action report. But all right, that wasn't your best game. You were compared to what you played like last week, that was a whole different person out there. What do you think accounts for that? And we go through the conversation, have a talk about it. But ultimately it's like, well, it's not like your strength changed, not like your speed changed between last week and this week. It's not like, you didn't have enough access to food or water. It's something up here. Even if it was hydration, that was the issue. It's still, to me, rooted in the decision, which is coming from your brain. It's the mental part of the game. And so even the decisions that we make that result in inconsistency, to me, seem like they have their root, in mindset and decision making.
Yeah.
Well, I think too, you got between the 14 to 16-year-olds or 17-year-olds, especially, there's a lot of outside noise going on around them.
Yeah.
So, the focus isn't there a lot of times, because they're so easily distracted.
Yeah, we got these things now too, right? These things.
Yeah. So the those kind of gadgets, the phones, the iPads, the computers, social media, all that stuff comes into play now, where that stuff we didn't have to worry about when we were kids, right? I mean, it was.
Yeah, well, it's all about preparation. If you want consistency, then you have to prepare consistent, right? So it's just like having a pregame routine. Why do we do pregame routine? Was it because we're stuck in a ritual and we can't do anything different because the heavens are going to open up and we're going to have a terrible game if we're not wearing our smelly t-shirt? No, we do pregame routines because if we go through a routine to get up to the game, then the goal is to have a consistent start to the game, right? And then it's I can control my start by controlling my lead up, my runway, so to speak. And it's all about the preparedness. But you bring up a really good point about focus, Paul. The idea that focus is putting your mind on the right thing at the right time in the right way. But it's not just the execution of that skill, it's the lead up. It's the expectation of that skill, right? And that could be what's missing, right? So as a player, I make an error, I lose the puck in the corner, they get a quick goal. I'm kicking myself, I'm frustrated, so I go to the bench, and then I come back on the ice, and I'm still pissed off because I let that guy get by me. And so where's my focus? Is it on what's going to make me a great player? Absolutely not, right? So how do we train that into a player to just let it go, right? Isn't that just a resilience thing, coach? Isn't that something that, you know, they're just going to have to learn how to do? Well, yes, but it's a focus issue, right? It's a focus issue. Your ability to put your mind on what you want. Like right now, if I asked, you know, anybody that's watching this to right now, picture a white bear. Picture a white polar bear standing up tall, scary and big and giant, right? Picture that white bear, his teeth, his fangs, and all that kind of stuff. Now stop. Now don't think of a white bear. Do not think of a white bear. Stop thinking about a white bear, right? What are we doing? You can't stop thinking about a white bear because I'm telling you to stop thinking about a white bear, and you're telling yourself, don't think about a white bear, don't think about a white bear, but you're thinking about a white bear. Well, we do that too. So we get out on the ice and we're like, don't screw up. Don't make a mistake, right? Don't give the puck away. Don't turn it over. Don't, you know, whatever. And so we're basically telling our brains to do exactly what we don't want them to do. And that's because we haven't learned how to focus properly. So if you learn how to focus properly, guess what? You eliminate a lot of that stuff. So super important. Really, really good points.
Reminds me of the Henry Ford quote, whether you think you can or think you can't, either way, you're right.
Yep. My favorite is that you move in the direction of your thoughts. So whatever you decide to think about, that's the direction that you're going to go. And that's true of everything in life, right? Think about when you want something, you want a video game, you want a new car, whatever, and it's all you can think about. And that's all you see, right? You see every commercial for the video games, you see cars going up and down the street, because your brain is just primed to see it. And eventually you move in that direction. Well, if that's a concept that works every time, all the time, for everyone, everywhere, then why not harness that? Why not decide what we think about, right? Why don't we put that out there in front of us so that we are deciding what we're moving towards instead of just sort of being a ship in the middle of the ocean, just floating around, waiting to see where the waves take us.
Awesome. So give us a little, how long is your program? Do you have players that are kind of with you indefinitely, or do you have like a 6-month program, a 2-year program? Give us a little insight into, you know, how you help and the duration or how that relationship evolves.
For sure. So my core program is what I call my Mental Toughness Boot Camp. And that is a program. It's 12 weeks. We go through all of these different, you know, the right stuff that I call it, all of these different areas we address. We've incorporated the BET training. That's all new, right? The BET training, I didn't have that years ago. That's all new stuff. That's stuff that is now available. So we've incorporated some of that into it. The mindfulness and all that kind of stuff. I've got a site called Zen Hockey, where I teach you basically how to pay attention to your thoughts and be aware and be present in the moment. So yeah, zenhockey.com. And it's another site. It's free. You sign up and there's lessons that you can take. And it's moments where you are just sort of allowing your thoughts to exist, and you're just sort of watching them go by like you watch clouds go by, you know, on a pretty day. So those are things that we incorporate. But so the core is the idea that if I can get you to focus on mental toughness training for 12 weeks, then you're going to be so far ahead of every player that you go up against that it's not even funny. But 12 weeks is a pretty good investment, right? That's a pretty decent investment of time. So what we've done is we've given an option called a 30-day challenge. And this is something that I think every player should do. Every player should do. If you never take anything else and you just do the 30-day challenge, that's going to give you such an advantage over everybody else. And the reason is because it's going to break down all of these things that we've been talking about here for the past 30 minutes. And it's going to expose you to ways that you can begin to incorporate some sort of strategy in your game to make those things better. Now, is there more information that you could learn about that? Yes, that's why I have the boot camp, right? But it's enough to expose you to some of these ideas that maybe you can begin to incorporate your own way of using this stuff. It's super cheap, 47 bucks. I mean, seriously, this is a program that I would probably sell for $300 or $400. It's got that much content, but I need people to engage with it. I need people to get involved so that now they sit down and say, wow, you know what? He's right. I do need to add this stuff to my game. Well, now there's no excuse, right? It's cheap. It's only 30 days. It's every day for 30 days. So you really have to sort of jump in and say, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this.
That's
right?
a
So
great
every
time
day
to
you
do
get
that. I mean,
hey, go do your course. What was that?
I think this is a perfect time for, our listeners, student athletes, to do this. I mean, we got this COVID-19 quarantine. I mean, this is a phenomenal time for, I've been, in business, I've been telling business owners that I help and mentor, like, this is the time to work on your business, not in your business, because the minute the switch gets flipped back on and we get back to busy life, most people never spend any time working on themselves and on their business. Is always working in the business, putting out the fires, doing the stuff every single day. And for the student athlete who's got goals of getting to the next level of playing in college, while we've got some downtime and your off season is really off season, this is the perfect time to do something like your 30-day challenge.
Absolutely. And if if you want to just put your toe in the water, this is brilliant, right? $50, less than $50. How can you not just do it? Even if it sucks, it's only $50, right? What have you lost, right? But it doesn't. It's extremely good. And matter of fact, you were talking earlier about other sports. This is written in hockey language, but it applies to everything, and it applies to even more than sport, right? The idea of resilience, right? You get knocked down, you got to get back up. Has that ever happened outside of your sport? Have you ever had a situation where something happened in school and you're like, oh my gosh, I have just been, taken to the mat, but I got to get back up and I got to get going again. So they're life skills that we're talking about. So if you're a basketball player or a baseball player, you're like, crap, man, this would be great if I was a hockey player, but I'm not. Do it. Just do it. And you're going to still learn these skills. The skills are universal. It's just speaking a hockey language is all.
Give us a quick, I'm going to have both my boys do it for sure. So you got 2 new customers there for sure. But so give us a quick little overview of that. What does that 30 days look like? I get up, day one. Just give us a quick little overview of what it would like to take that 30-day challenge.
Yeah. So basically every single day we're going to jump in. We have a short lesson that's anywhere from, 10 to 15 minutes. It's a short video lesson where we're talking about the concepts. There is a little bit of text, not too much to read, but between the video and the exercise, you got what I call an action item that you have to complete. So I consume the video, I'm being exposed to these ideas, these skills, these strategies, and then I've got to complete this action item. So I'm starting to reinforce it, right? And then that's it for the day. So in 30 minutes, you've been able to go consume say it's on drive, right? Your motivation, your ability to stay focused on what you want to accomplish, or maybe it's on confidence, or maybe it's on routine, right? Maybe
we lost Dr. Willis there for a second. So for our listeners here, just give us a pause. We lost a connection there.
Less than $50 to be able to go through that. Even if you only got a couple of ideas out of it, and you will get, you'll get very specific strategies that you can start using right now. And so, what do you have to lose? And it's all of these mental skill topics that we talked about. And then I touch on these other pillars, the brain endurance and the mindfulness.
So let's just say, I'm a parent and I want to give my son or daughter that competitive advantage. And I get it. I go, yeah, I see the inconsistency. I can see how they would really benefit from having a mindset coach or someone who's going to help them build a performance mindset. Give us a little insight into your 12-week program. What is the cost? What's like, the syllabus, or what do you do with a student athlete when you have them for 12 weeks?
It's the same topics, but we go much deeper, right? Okay. We're going to go a lot deeper. We're going to bring out lots more opportunities to apply it to your situation, your world. And so that's part of it. You can learn something, you can hear something and you say, wow, man, that's a really cool idea. But if you don't incorporate it, if you don't know how to incorporate it, then it just sort of evaporates, right? It sort of goes away. And so that's part of the purpose of the 12 weeks is because we're really hammering home the fact that now that you've learned this, let's use it, right? So it's much deeper. It's closer to $500 for that program, right? And again, it's just much more comprehensive course. There's a lot more to it. You get to touch on the brain endurance stuff that there's not much in the challenge of that. But again, it's just a little bit bigger investment. And then of course there's opportunities for one-on-one coaching. And that's almost all of the elite players that I'm working with come to me because they're dealing with something, right? There's a situation that they're trying to struggle through, or they're being given an opportunity and they want to make sure they're ready, right? So it's more of a preparedness.
Sure.
So I do a lot of one-on-one stuff, but the great thing is that if you're going through these online programs and you're learning all this stuff, this is stuff that I don't have to continue to tell every single person. It doesn't burn our time together, right? Because you're able to learn all this stuff, and now you're coming and we're having a conversation, but you've already got a baseline of knowledge. Yeah. Now we can start digging deep into what this means for you, right? What does this mean in your team and your league and your goals and your purpose for moving up in this game? How do we take this stuff and apply it to you? And that's why I so encourage folks to grab onto these online programs, because you get that foundation. And then if there's a need, let's get on the phone. Let's talk. Let's have a conversation just like this. We can do a Zoom call. We can do just over the phone. And then we spend 30, 40 minutes, a week, however long you want to do it, right? And we're talking about your situation. You'd ask too, how long does this go? Well, everybody's different. I've got a few players that I've been working with for like 3 years now, right? And I touch base with them, not every week, but maybe every other week, or maybe they're going through something, so it is every week. Maybe it's 2 times a week if there's a really tough situation, or they got a tryout coming up or something like that. So that gives you that flexibility to have the one-on-one connection. And the other one-on-one side of it is, as a parent, I'm a coach. Sometimes the parents need an opportunity to vent. They need to understand their kid's situation a little bit better. And having come from that world, we can use that time to work with parents or coaches, right? Coaches are like, what, this team, they're burning me out. I just don't even know how to reach them. Get on the phone, let's talk, and we can put together an entire plan that you can then use and roll out to your players. And if it's coming from you, right, your players are going to buy in. Sometimes if I go in, it works. Sometimes when I go in, I get to sort of, hold off. But I can tell you that if a coach doesn't believe that this stuff is important, I will never reach their players ever, right? Even if I'm talking to them, I won't, because the coach holds that much power. So it always has to come from the top down.
That's a good point. Let's talk about that for a second. So do you help coaches so that they can then help their players on their team with mindset, focus, preparation, etc.?
Yes, and I'm using the same content, right? So we're able to use the exact stuff that their players are going to go through, but I'm working with the coaches as the coaches are going through it, so that they're solid on all this stuff. And here's the cool thing is that if you could learn this stuff and you understand about how to sort of reset after a setback or something like that, and nobody ever sort of provides feedback or support while you're on the bench. I can't travel around the country and follow everybody around and say, you can do it, Jimmy, you can do it, right? They've got to do it for themselves. But if the coach is engaged and the coach sees that the guy just bounced back after, a boneheaded play, man, think about how fast this stuff starts to stick and how quickly these players will develop. So to answer your question, yes, if I can get a coach engaged and I can work with a coach as I'm working with players or a team, it is so much more powerful than if I'm just working with, an individual player. If I'm working with a team versus an individual, what happens with the team, this is one of the things with the challenge I think is so powerful because it's so affordable. You can get an entire team to sign up and we're going through it all together. 30-day sprint, right?
Yeah.
But because they're doing it together, they begin to hold each other accountable and they start to, get on each other. Come on, you can do it, bounce back, because they know, hey, we just went through the lesson on resilience. How cool is that? I know how to respond to, our goalie who just got shell-shocked, right?
Let me ask you this, Kevin. You've been with us almost since the beginning. So you've seen the DISC player assessment with the enhanced profile. And how much do you value that information?
Absolutely. I think awareness, one of the things that I think, and it's in the foundation, if you remember under the right preparation, I talk about awareness. Your ability to know who you are as a player and to be realistic about it is what's going to allow you to advance the quickest, right? Players that are got a big head, guess what? They're going to crash and burn. Players that struggle with, that struggle with confidence and stuff like that, they're always gonna be, struggle with their performance. But then when you look at something like an assessment, right, like a DISC assessment, I have on my site what I call a hockey type, right? When you're able to sort of get a baseline understanding of sort of what the temperament and the personality is of a player, then you know sort of what to expect in certain situations. And then as a coach, I know better how to respond. As a coach, you know that some players, you got to kick them in the butt to get them going. And others, if you kick them in the butt, they'll just shut down, right? So your ability to sort of have advanced insight into sort of expectation of how they're going to respond to certain, situations and stuff like that, you're definitely at an advantage if you can have assessment or something like that done. And again, my boot camp, that assessment comes built in. We look at something that's called a TASE assessment, it's about the ability to perform under pressure, right? So it's specific to that, your ability to make quick decisions and stay the course even when it's hard. So we use that all the time with our players and share that with, organizations and other, agents and stuff like that, so that they sort of know who it is that they're bringing into their organization, to their camp, to their program. Because if I know sort of who I'm bringing in, I have expectations what I can get out of them, then I know exactly what the buttons to push to get the most out of them.
Right. Yeah, it's invaluable. It's invaluable information.
Yeah, and if that stuff is available, why wouldn't you take advantage of it? There are some people, I'll be honest, that just believe that you learn this as you go. If you're going to be tough, it's because you learned how to be tough. And I agree. Up until now, I would say that's just about how everybody did it, right? But if somebody is going to teach you how to do it, and you just have to now employ that into what you're currently doing, why wouldn't you do that, right? Why wouldn't you? When you learned how to skate, you sort of figured it out, you figured out your balance and all that, but then somebody came in and they gave you some very specific pointers, and you were able to turn it on like that. Well, it's this too. I'm just basically providing insight into, what it takes to develop your mental game. And if I sort of know who I'm talking to, then I can customize that information, and everybody's at an advantage at that point.
I know as a parent, I'm kind of talking to the parent group here that might be listening to this this podcast episode, but we all, as parents, we want our kids to fulfill and, maximize what they're capable of. We want to help them get the most out of who they are as a person, their capabilities, their skills, their talents. And, I know for me, especially as my boys got into the teen years, kind of once you get out of the adolescent years, you get into teen years, I knew that I needed to get my boys exposed to as many coaches that were of great character and could really help them as possible, because I needed to start to slowly step away and let them, grow on their own. How kids are with parents. They just start to tune parents out. And I know for me, I was like, how do I help my boys just continually maximize their capabilities? And, I see so many parents doing it alone and frustrated, and like, how do I get it? And then the dynamic between them and their kids starts to break down because they're not sure how to help them, and they're trying to do it all themselves. And so if you're a parent listening, you've got phenomenal resources like Dr. Willis's, mental toughness training. You've got, advisors out there. You've got resources. That's one of the reasons why Paul and I created Elite Junior Profiles, was because there is a need for resources out there, and parents don't have to go it alone. But oftentimes we're like, well, what do I do? Who do I get them around? But I can't express enough how my belief in the mental side of this game, the performance mindset, I'm excited to get my boys exposed to this even more. You've been in our site here for 6 months to a year already, and I'm almost embarrassed to say that I haven't, been proactive with getting my boys exposed to your program here, but I'm super excited about that going forward. It's just a great resource. My question is accountability. Like if I'm a parent and I go, Luke, you need to take Dr. Willis's, 30-day challenge here. Do you have accountability with the player, or is that really more on the parent to kind of watch and make sure that they're I mean, obviously the kid has to do it on their own. Like there's got to be some of that, they got to do it on their own and be motivated, self-motivated. But especially as you get younger down in age, I say, parents are still involved and trying to help make sure, that we're influencing the process. How do you work with parents and the player dynamic?
Well, first off, one of the things I will tell every hockey parent out there and any parent of a athlete, I've got a book. It's free download. It's called How to Be the Ultimate Hockey Parent. Go to my main page, you'll scroll down, you'll see the workbook section. Go inside there and download the Ultimate Hockey Parent and read it. And it really starts to give you some insight as to what players need, right? What they're sort of dealing with. It's broken into two parts. One is sort of understanding the world of that elite athlete and what they're dealing with in their sport as they try to move up. And then the second part is what can you do to support them, can be, valuable and helpful. And some of it's sort of hard to hear, right? I'll be honest with you. It's not something that I get a lot of high fives when I talk to parents, face to face. But I think when they sort of consume it in their own private quietness, they might be sitting there thinking to themselves, yeah, crap, I do that. I got to stop doing that, right? Because I do it, right? As a parent, I do stuff like that. I mean, I'll tell you, it's one of the hardest things to do is when your kid has not the best game, right? And you're driving home, to not talk about it on the way home, to me, is freaking torture, right? I just need for him to understand, areas where he could have been better and how he could have been better and all that. But guess what? That's completely damaging. That is the worst thing that you can do. You've got to give them some space to sort of deal with it. Now, my kid learned to ask, hey, Dad, how did I do? And I say, well, you know what? I'll tell you what. I was proud of you because I saw you working hard, but I also saw you struggling. But let's do this. Let's talk about it tomorrow, right? So let's let some of this energy sort of fade out. Because, even constructive criticism sounds like criticism, right? There's nothing that you say, and you don't want to lie to them. Oh no, you were great. Oh, you were awesome. You were fantastic, right?
Guilty.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think everybody does that. I mean, I've had some dads who are absolutely brilliant at just keeping their mouth shut. Moms are usually pretty good. Moms are usually sitting there looking at the dad sort of like one of those, keep your mouth shut, don't say anything, do you just shut up, right? And I had to learn that, right? I was not nearly
for a parent, it's a learned skill.
Early as I was later, but these are things that as a parent, you get these, these parent goggles on, and you don't see the world the same when it's your kid. I'll be honest, you just don't.
I think that the parents should incorporate the 24-hour rule with their son as they should with the coach.
Yeah.
Right? So if you let everything just digest a little bit, wind down, just, love your kid, be there, support, support his enthusiasm, whatever it is, and talk about, aspects of the game 24 hours.
Well, as a parent, I had to learn that skill, right? I mean, you could, I think, it's always funny. I look back at it now and you laugh at it, what parents are like at mites and squirts. And you're like, my God, are they nuts? I mean, it's comical, right? And you go like, yeah, but I was that nuts too when they were a mite. And it's so funny because they're like, 6 years old, 7 years old. They can't hardly barely walk yet. And they're out on the ice and you're screaming, losing your mind, and then you do the after action report on the car ride home with the 7-year-old. And you're like, what, I can, it's just so funny, but it is a learned skill for parents to really learn that, like that discipline of the 24-hour rule with the player as much as it is with the coach. But then I think as I learned that and then practiced it, I definitely saw the positive results that also had, right? Because there's not that tension, there's not that friction. Of course, we want our kids to be able to have a blast doing it. You don't want to ruin it. But I can see just the real value in being able to also, for me, like when I had, Paul and other coaches like that for my boys, it was awesome to be able to go talk to coach about it, go talk to coach about it. I don't have to, now I can go have a beer or go have a cup of coffee and relax, and just enjoy it and know that, they're going to get great objective insight from a coach, and it's going to be much more well received than if I were to try to deliver it myself as a parent.
Yeah, no, it's hard being a coach of your own kid, and it's for that exact reason, because you got the coach's hat saying, here's what you need to work on. And you got the dad hat that says, you know what, I love you. I don't care how you do. I love you. As long as you're having fun, let's do this. And I think one of the things that you brought up was accountability, and it comes down to passion, right? So I wrote a book called Hockey, Grit, Grind, and Mind. Actually, go to hockeygritgrindandmind.net, and you will see, actually, I think it's .com. I can't remember, it's either .com or .net. But in the book, I break down these different areas, but there's one area that I cover twice, and it's passion, right? It's passion. And that's because every professional I've ever interviewed, and I talk to them about what it takes to play at the highest levels and everything, they all include passion, all of them. All of them include passion, and it's true, right? And it's twice because it's the passion to start. There's this something that happens when you're a kid and you fall in love with something and you just have to learn it. And you just do it, not because anybody's telling you to, but because you love it so much. That's the kind of passion I'm talking about. It's like when I fell in love with this idea of understanding how these college kids beat, you know, a Russian hockey machine. That's the kind of passion I'm talking about. And that's that fire that burns inside of you. And if a kid doesn't have that, there's nothing you can do to give it to them. It has to come from within. So when you talk about accountability, if you're doing something because somebody wants you to do it, then that's not passion, right? That's external motivation, and that's not going to get you there. And then the other passion I talk about is the passion to stay. Because when things get hard, right? When things are difficult, when you can't see the path anymore because it's, you know, maybe you keep moving up and up and up. You've always been the best player, and now you're playing on a team where you're barely getting any ice time. Right? What happens to that passion there? What happens when adversity is starting to squeeze you, right? So it's, and that's why I recommend the book to parents. I recommend it to kids, but I recommend it to parents too, because it does sort of give you a overall understanding of what it takes to play hockey at the level that just about every kid imagines wanting to play. And again, for $10, why wouldn't you just go ahead and add that to your library?
And is it if we order, is it a paper book that comes, or is it an ebook?
Yeah, no, it's a physical book, actually. Here, right here. It's a physical book, and you order it, and it comes. Now you can get it on Amazon, so you can go and get it right now. You can have it on your Kindle in 5 minutes, right?
Awesome.
Or you can order it on my site, and we'll pack it up and we'll ship it out. Or you can order the physical copy on Amazon. So there's different ways to get it. You might be able to go to the bookstore and find it on the hockey shelf. It's one of my favorite things to do when I travel around is to go to the bookstore and see if they got my book on the shelf.
That's awesome.
So yeah, it's around.
So we got the book. We have the Hockey Grit, Grind and Mind, the book, right?
Yep.
We got the 30-day challenge, which is $47.
Yep.
Which is a no-brainer in my book. And then you mentioned a book.
The boot camp. The boot camp is, yeah. So a boot camp is $447, and I don't have it on a site because I sell it through a webinar.
Okay.
But the boot camp, and then I have private coaching. But you know what? If you're not sure what you want to do, I do what's called a discovery call with anybody, right? So if you click and say to schedule a call right there on that thing, you schedule a call. You book a call, we get on the phone and we chat for about a half hour and we talk about what you're dealing with and we figure out what's the right solution for you. Is it, hey, let's go through the challenge and see how they respond, because I'm not going to make my kid do this, right? And I don't want to spend all this money if I'm the only source of motivation, right? There's something else going on that I've got to work with. But if my kid is absolutely so driven to do anything and everything, then why wouldn't you give them access to stuff like this, right?
Awesome. Good stuff. So
Great stuff. Great stuff.
Yeah. So from $10 to $5,000, there's something in there where we can work together and we can accomplish stuff together, helping your kid, you know, move up in their sport and become the best they can be.
Really, really good stuff. Give us just a quick background of your training.
So basically, I knew I was going to be a sports psychologist, like I said, from a very early age. But, you know, sports psychology is not the most profitable. You do it because you love it. Let's just say that. You do it because you love it. And one of the reasons why I switched from doing all sports to hockey is because I'm such a freak and I love hockey so much that if I'm going to do something for the joy of loving it, then I'm going to do the sport that I love the most. But again, I don't turn anybody away. So if anybody's watching this and like, crap, man, I wish he talked to my kid. He's a baseball player. I work with all sports, promise. But I just don't have that sites built for all the sports. And I have found that if you have generic sites, they're not interested, right? They want to know that you know them. I play baseball, so I know baseball as a player. I coach baseball. Anyways, at the end of the day, if you're sitting there on the fence going, man, I don't know if I should talk to him. He's not even a basketball guy. He's not a lacrosse guy. Yeah, I am. I'm all of those things. But to answer your question, so my goal was to be to have a PhD, to be a doctor, sports psychology, and to give back. But I had to pay the bills and do all that kind of stuff. So I actually was going to be a veterinarian. And I realized that veterinarians, this was years ago, they don't make a ton of money for the amount of time they have to go to school. So I was saying, well, if I'm going to spend that much time studying, I might as well figure out a way to make money. And in technology and IT, for whatever reason, I'm sort of just gifted in that area. I just get it. And so it was a great way to pay the bills. And so I spent years and years as a CIO for a pharmaceutical company while I'm doing my coaching, right? So I sort of wore different hats for a long time. But then as I got older, my kids are growing up and all that, and you say, you know what? I'm going to do what I love. And I've just been full into this, the sports psychology and the mental coaching for the past 10 years. But, I've been doing it for probably 25 years.
Where'd you get your degree at, just out of curiosity?
Capella University. All my education has been online.
Really?
I was one of the early adopters. And right now, I love anybody that looks at that as an opportunity to get those credentials and that education at a high level. It's one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about providing my stuff online, because I think what a great way to learn. You learn on your timetable. You learn on, when it's convenient for you. But if you're passionate enough to pursue it, then it's on you, because it ain't easy. It's not like an online degree is any less,
Right.
work than going to a brick and mortar. So any kids, you guys are thinking about, man, I should go to college. I should go to, well, don't count out online programs, because I think, to be honest with you, I think they're better than a lot of these in-house programs.
Right now, people have no choice. It's amazing how many people, kids basically all over the country have been forced to online high school, if nothing, or online school. We're getting a good dose of the, not only that it's an opportunity, but in some instances it's completely required now.
Absolutely. And this is a lot about somebody who can do it, right? Can go through and do what they have to do when they're their only, source of motivation, when they're their only boss. And so
you have to be disciplined to do that. Right?
Yeah, you do. And that shows a lot of character in folks. And I sort of challenge players all the time to get into programs and do things where they have to oversee themselves, right? Even my stuff, they have to oversee themselves, but I'm engaged, so I can't judge that. And I think it says a lot about what do you truly want? What do you really want to be by watching what they do? Really, it's not about what you say, it's about what you do. And that's what I'm most interested in, is what are you doing, not what are you talking about.
So I heard your recommendation. Maybe it was slight, but what I kind of heard you say is, if I were to maybe patch a few things together, is the player has to have the passion, the personal motivation and passion to do this, to read the book, to do the 30-day challenge, whatever it might be. So if I'm a parent, what would you, and I go, man, I'm listening to this and I go, man, Johnny, really, I could see how my kid would really benefit from, if nothing else, doing the 30-day challenge and reading the book. How would you recommend a parent introduce this to their player in a way where you feel like it would be received well and have the best chance of sticking with them and them going, yeah, I want to do it, Mom, or Dad, yeah, I'll do it. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, well, I think every player is looking for an edge. I think they're looking for something that somebody doesn't know, right? So I'm doing something, or I'm learning something that you don't know, and that's pretty cool. And I think we're all sort of competitive like that. So that's how I always position it. Hey, you have an opportunity to access something that not everybody gets access to, or not everybody will actually do. But if you're interested, I'm behind you 100%, right? So if I get a kid that's excited about something and I'm disinterested and I'm sort of, you know, I want nothing to do with it, that may or may not turn them off, right? But if I am interested in it, then that sort of makes them lean in and say, well, okay, so if they're interested, then I'm sort of interested. But you got to be careful, right? Because parents could then go too far and their passion and their love ends up pushing the kid out of it, right? So at the end of the day, it's still the players, right?
Well, I mean, as parents, Lean, right? I mean, all you can do is present the opportunities for your kids, right? And if they take advantage of it, and if they want it bad enough, then here's another opportunity to help grow and develop as a player. And if they take advantage of it, great. If they don't, you can't. You know, you can take them to the water, but you can't make them drink.
Exactly. That's you could not have said it better. And at the end of the day, one thing you have to remember about younger kids is that their brains are not fully developed. They are not little adults. They're kids. And so the decision-making part of their brain is still maturing. I mean, hell, it's maturing up until they're 25 years old, right? So we can't expect them to logically process this idea that here's an opportunity, I should take advantage of, blah, blah, blah. So we do need to sell it a little bit more. We have to make it sort of an emotional thing. Hey, wouldn't you like to be able to stand out? Wouldn't you like the coach to notice that you're the guy that they can put in during those pressure moments because you always seem to be able to come up big, right? Those kinds of things, you know, paint pictures, right? Let them know that the work that you're doing in this space doesn't make your arms big, but it makes your brain big. And I say that literally. It literally changes your brain. And so things that you used to have to think about now become automatic, right? There's one reason why we're making faster decisions is because we've made it so many times that the wiring in our brain is set to make that decision faster. So it's a physical process that's happening to make you, to allow you to make that decision really quickly. It's not just because you know, thought of it
Repetition.
first.
It's all repetition.
Literally processing it faster.
Right.
Awesome stuff. Really appreciate your time today and sharing all this with both Paul and I, but also with anyone who will be listening to this. I can see it just being a real competitive advantage for those student athletes that decide to put their passion behind it and actually put themselves through these processes that you've built out for them.
Good. Well, I appreciate you guys giving me a chance to sort of talk about it. I have some friends, and every once in a while I get on the Sirius XM NHL radio, and I get to talk about it, and it brings the volume up, and everybody's buzzing, and then it sort of dies down again. And let's face it, at the end of the day, the mental game isn't the first thing you think about. You're always thinking about skating faster and shooting harder and all that kind of stuff. It's just the way it is. I understand that. I get that. I'm not going to battle that. But I'm also going to continue to tell folks that if half of this game is mental and you're doing nothing, then you are leaving a lot on the table. So think about it. Add this to your game. It's super easy to do. There's nothing that we've talked about here that, you know, even a 10-year-old couldn't take advantage of. So why wouldn't you? If you don't, you're basically saying that there's a limit to what I'm willing to do to be the best that I can be. And that's on you. That's a decision that you sort of going to have to live with. But most people will give it a try.
Well, our listeners and everybody that's on our platform is very fortunate that we have you in our provider directory, and you are there to use and make contact with and take your expertise and help them grow and develop as players. We appreciate you and what you do. And thank you for taking the time today to come out with us and share a little bit about your business and how you can help these players continue to grow. Thank you for your time, Kevin.
I appreciate it. I'm here if anybody needs to talk. We got a little extra time on our hands. So, hey, ring me up, right? Give me a shout, you know, email me, whatever you want. I'm happy to chat.
So for those, as we wrap up here, Dr. Willis, thanks again for your time. I'll echo what Paul just said. For those of you who will watch or listen to this, if you want to connect with Dr. Kevin Willis, you can go to EliteJuniorProfiles.com, go to our directories menu option on our main navigation, and then just click on providers. Excuse me, that providers list is where Dr. Willis, you'll find him there. You'll get his contact information. You can email him. Also, if you want to go directly to his website, it's thecompleteplayer.com, thecompleteplayer.com. You can certainly connect with him through directly through his website, and also there's the jump off links to register for the book, the free mental toughness training, and the hockey type test as well. So thecompleteplayer.com. Also, you can find Dr. Willis on our website under the provider directory. Dr. Willis, thanks again for your time today. I learned a lot, and I know our listeners will gain a great deal of insight, and hopefully by putting into practice a great deal of competitive advantage in their player as they approach this next season. And lastly, I think as we wrap up this, hopefully we're wrapping up this, this odd time in our nation's history with COVID-19 and the quarantine. But while we have the time to be working on ourselves, this extra time to be doing things online, I want to encourage everyone to take advantage of the opportunities that Dr. Willis has provided us today in this time. And with that, we'll wrap up. Thanks again, Dr. Willis. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Have a great day. Thanks a lot.
Take care.
Bye-bye.